Hello, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about adjacent, vertical, supplementary, and complementary angles. So we are going to be diving into our geometry unit today. So our objective for today is I will be able to identify and solve adjacent, vertical, supplementary, and complementary angle problems. So first we need to define a few things. So first thing, adjacent angles. So adjacent angles are side by side and they share a common ray. So take a look at this example. These angles, the 45-degree angle and the 15-degree angle, are adjacent angles because they share a common ray, or they share this common ray that's coming out right here. That's why they're adjacent. They're right next to each other and they share this ray. Right, so here are all examples of adjacent angles, and yes, I do think it's important that you write these down so then you can see many different types of adjacent angles. So we have a 35 and a 55 that share a common ray, an 80-degree and a 45-degree that share a different common ray, an 85 and a 20 that share a common ray, and then 130 and a 50 that share a common ray. There are two angles that share a common ray. These are not adjacent. So let's just see some differences. These are side by side, but they do not share a common ray. These two angles that are shown here, the 55 and the 45, they're not adjacent because they don't share a common ray. If you start at the point or at the angle, there is no common between them. They just come from the same point. And then these are not adjacent because they do not share a common ray. Our next vocabulary word is vertical angles. So vertical angles is a vocabulary word, and it's formed when two lines intersect. Right? So you can see we have an 105-degree angle, 75, 105, and 75. So the vertical angles are the ones that are opposite of each other. So vertical angles are opposite. So 75 degrees and 75 degrees. Also means that they are congruent or the same. So 75, 75, 105, 105, they're both vertical angles and they are both equal or congruent. The other example that we have here is we have a 150-degree angle and another 150-degree angle. They're opposite or vertical angles, so they're equal. And then the 30 and 30-degree angles are vertical angles or equal or congruent. The next vocabulary word that we have is supplementary angles, and supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees. A lot of times you'll see them like this first example. They're adjacent, they're on one line. And remember, a straight line is 180. So it has a straight line with a ray coming out of it. We have 180 and 60. So we know that 120 plus 60 is equal to 180. So we know that these are supplementary angles. Okay, and these happen to be adjacent. This right here is also supplementary angles, but they're not adjacent because they do not share a common ray. So we can check ourselves by 40 plus 140 is equal to 180. Yes, indeed they are, because 40 plus 140 is 180. Okay? The next pair of vocabulary word is supplementary angles, and complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So how we remember that, and how I remember that, is complementary. C is the smaller one, or 90 degrees. C comes before S in the alphabet, so 90 degrees comes before 180. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So let's take a look. We have a 30-degree angle on a 60, so 30 plus 60 is equal to 90, and yes, indeed it does. So we know that these are complementary angles. And this first example is adjacent because it's sharing a common ray. Complementary angles but not adjacent, 40 plus 50 is indeed 90. They just do not share a common ray. So these are complementary angles. Okay, so we're going to use that information to determine the missing angle side. All right, so number one, we have this image. Okay, So we have 45-degree angle right here on one line, and we're trying to find out the missing side. So since this is a supplementary angle, we know that this line here, this line right here, is 180 degrees. So we're going to make an equation and set it equal to 180 degrees. Now we're going to take the side that we know. Well, we know that one side is 45 degrees. And if it's going to equal 180, you need to add them together. So 45 plus, we don't know, so x equals 180. Now this should look awfully familiar. One-step equation. We subtract 45 from both sides. These cancel out. That leaves us with x is equal to 100. Sorry, x is equal to 135. Oh, and then lost my cursor here. There it goes, 135 degrees. Okay, so this right here, 135 degrees. You can check yourself by plugging it back in. 135 plus 45 is indeed 180. Okay, so we know that this is correct. Our next example is of a complementary angle. Okay, and as you can see, this is a 90-degree angle, so same concept, a 90-degree angle. We know that these two, when we add them together, they have to equal 90 degrees. So 65 plus, we don't know, so let's use x equals 90. Subtract 65 from both sides. So x is equal to 25. Okay. This next image we are talking about is an example of a vertical angle. Because you can see that these two look, they are equal, or they're equal, okay, or they are opposite or congruent. So because they are equal and it is a vertical angle, we know that this is also going to be 35 degrees. There's no math involved, it's just the rule. Now we could say, well, what is this angle right here? And this angle? We know they're going to be the same. Well, you can see that this line right here is 180 degrees. It's a straight line. I just apologize, my not so straight line that I just drew. So 180 degrees is equal to 35 plus x. Subtract 35 from both sides. Okay. So x is equal to, we're going to have to borrow a little bit. 10 minus 5 is 5. 7 minus 3 is 4. 145. So x is equal to 145. So we just found the missing sides for all four sides. Alright, let's take a look at this one. This one's very similar to the one that we just did. This is another example of a supplementary angle. So you can see it's off of a straight line, so that means it's going to be set equal to 180. We know 50 is our one side length, and we don't know the other. We subtract 50 by both sides, so x is equal to 130. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now let's take a look at this. Okay, now we have another vertical angle example. So we know that across it, or opposite of it, of 140, is 140. Okay, we could also figure out right here these two. Okay, because 180 equals 140 plus x. Subtract 140 from both sides. So x is equal to 40. So we know that this would equal to 40. Our last example before the U-try problem is a square, and we drew a triangle or a line to make two triangles, and we want to know what this side is too. Well, we know that the corner of a square is a right angle, and so this is a complementary angle. So 90 is equal to 40 plus x. Subtract 40 from both sides, and we can tell that x is equal to 50 degrees. So it's pretty self-explanatory, boys and girls, and even if you forget the common names for them, you can kind of use your eyeballs and ask yourself, is this a 90-degree angle? This is a 180-degree angle. Now you will need to know the vocabulary words, and remember the trick that I use. If it's complementary, it's C. C goes with the 90 degrees, and supplementary is later in the alphabet. It goes with the 180 degrees because it's bigger. All right, so here are the two you try problems for today. You have one complementary and one supplementary angle problem, so go back, look at your notes, try to figure this out. And as always, if you have any questions, please write them down for me to answer when you come back to class. So thank you so much for actively listening, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.